500 settling at new highs for the year, both up 1% year to date. It doesn't sound like a lot, but consider the losses they had in the beginning. Join me now, Todd Horwitz, Chief Market Strategist at BubbaTrading.com. And that's Bubba for president, by the way. He's not endorsing a particular candidate. So is this a trend or a bubble?
This is a bubble. It's always been a bubble. You can't have a market that continues to go up based on what the Federal Reserve says and what they do by devaluing the dollar, talking about negative interest rates, trying to give free money to the street. We're in a very greedy cycle right now, and markets running cycle. This is the greed cycle.
But clearly the Fed can move the markets. And some people, by the way, say the market's moving the Fed. That's where they're getting all their cues. Do you agree?
I agree that the Fed is strictly watching what Wall Street does. And if the markets get in trouble, what happens? The Fed comes out and does something.
But the Fed's not supposed to do that. The Fed's mandate is to make sure that the dollar is solid and unemployment is down. And by the way, talk about bubbles. If the Fed is creating a bubble, there's talk about another condo bust looming in Miami. The Wall Street Journal had a big piece about that today.
Well, of course, because when you understand, when you bring in too much cheap money into people and you force people to do things that they're not accustomed to doing, they're outstretching their budget, buying these things, all of a sudden they don't have the money. They don't have the jobs. We've got a Fed that for the last three Fed governors, or chairmen, whatever they're called, have been bubble builders. Greenspan, Bernanke, and Yellen have done a lousy job at running what they're supposed to do. All they've done is been able to devalue the dollar. That's their goal.
And if you think we have a bubble now based on what the Fed is doing, imagine if we go into negative interest rates.
It scares me to no end. But every time that they go out and talk, it scares me to no end, because every day, yesterday we had four governors talking. What are they out talking for? Who needs to hear from them?
But that's the only other thing they can do other than zero interest rates is go negative. And they've been doing it more and more in Europe and in Japan to no effect, by the way. It hasn't helped the economy so far.
We've done nothing. All we see is trouble. And the biggest problem that nobody's talking about is the car companies are selling their future to get cars now, giving 10-year notes, over $1 trillion in debt there. And the banks are in big trouble because they're not lending money.
So when does the market pop?
When does the bubble pop? I can't predict it pop, but I guarantee that it does.
Give us a date. This year, next year?
I'd say this year, before this year's over, we'll be down over 10%, and in the next 2 years, we're down 25 to 40.
Todd Horwitz, thank you very much.
David,
taking the last plane out for Chicago. Melissa.